Welcome to The Secret Diary of a Producer, the podcast where we talk to the people behind some of the biggest television and film productions ever made. I'm Ed Taylor, and today's guest helped bring about one of the most successful British quiz shows of the last 20 years. The Chase is the most watched programme on daytime TV, attracting 9.2 million viewers each week. Hosted by Bradley Walsh on ITV, it first aired in 2009 and has run to over 2,000 episodes. Contestants win money in a cash builder round before going head-to-head against one of 6 professional quizzers, including Mark the Beast Lebet, Sean the Dark Destroyer Wallace, and Anne the Governess Hegarty. It has won numerous awards and spawned multiple spin-offs, including Beat the Chasers, Celebrity Chase, and the recently announced The Chase Around the World. Michael Kelpie is the executive producer who brought this quiz behemoth to life. Michael, welcome to The Secret Diary of a Producer. It's great to see you.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming in. So, Michael, you rescued me from the BBC in 2010, where I was working as a head of development for BBC Factual, and you brought me into ITV as an executive producer of entertainment, despite the fact that I had never made an entertainment show before. And I had various concerns about this, based on the fact that most of what I'd done was sort of very factual and documentary-like. And you said, don't worry, it'll be absolutely fine. You'll learn it really, really, really quick. Here's 3 series. Get on with them, make them.
But do you remember what those shows were?
I do. There were 4 Weddings,
yes.
Party Wars,
yes,
and I think the third one ended up being Steps Reunion.
Yeah.
So
they were all actually quite factual based.
They were all factual based, but they were, and they were within my wheelhouse, but I still hadn't done anything quite that entertainment before. But the reason why I say it is because you had a belief in me, which I really appreciated at the time, and the fact that I hadn't done exactly that, but I had the ability, you saw that I had the ability to adapt to that and I could go and do it. So I came work with you at ITV, and together with a couple of other creators, Phil Mount and eventually Martin Scott, we built a big slate of different programs, which was Surprise, Surprise, and Britain's Secret Treasures and all this kind of thing. But there was one show which kind of started your whole career at ITV.
Which show would that be?
The kind of juggernaut that is The Chase, the most successful quiz show on British television, which started in 2009. Can you just tell me a bit about where did it all begin? Where did The Chase? What was the first moment of The Chase's existence?
The first moment, right? So the first moment, when the cell first split, as it were, was before I was even involved. So in a dusty little room somewhere in the ITV tower, there was a grotty little bunch of people in development, and they were trying to come up with, anything to get commissioned because they weren't doing very well. So to give it a little bit of context, this was 2008, 2009. 2008, we'd had the Beijing Olympics. And the superstar of the 2008 Beijing Olympics was Usain Bolt.
Right.
Usain Bolt literally exploded on the world and won, I can't remember, it's 2 or 3 gold medals, 2 world records, Olympic records. I can't remember. Factual correctness has never really been my thing. That's why I brought you in to work with me. But so everybody, all development teams all over the world were trying to think about, oh my God, the entire world is obsessed with the fastest man on the planet. What can we do in TV formats to capitalize on this? And a very bright young person in the development team, whose name is Chris Jepp, said, well, what if we did the quiz equivalent of it? What if we had the quiz equivalent of Usain Bolt and people had a chance to race against Usain Bolt? So that was the first moment. That was the first thought. And at that point, they said, we'll call it The Chase. Then the team which was led by Amanda Wilson, Elliot Johnson, and in that team was Matt Pritchard, who's still one of the brightest quiz brains in the country, and Danny Carvalho, also a fantastic sort of rigorous developer. They then shaped this format, which was the basis of the show as we know it now, the format as we know it, but not exactly that. At that time, I was also producing a quiz show called The Krypton Factor. And I was, I think, literally the only person in ITV studios at the time, or ITV Productions as it was at the time, the only staff producer that had any experience in making a quiz. So my boss said, we've got a quiz in development. It's quite good. Can you go have a look at it and see if you'd like to make it? So I went and had a look at it, and then they did a run through, and I thought that's quite good. The network were very happy with me attached to it because I was popular with ITV at the time. And so we started to work on it.
So did you have the idea of the chasers in place at that point?
At that point, we had one chaser. So we had Sean Wallace. Sean had been cast because he was a mastermind champion. And he was, by reputation on the quiz circuit, one of the quickest quizzers in the country. And when we brought him in and tested him and fired quick fire questions at him, it was frightening how quick he was. We'd never seen anything like it. And I suppose now, so like 15 or so years later, 16, 17 years later, we're used to this quick fire stuff now. But then you'd never seen anything like it. Someone who could answer, 30 questions in 2 minutes and get most of them right. So we had the chaser, and the network really liked it and were really excited about it. But the format had some flaws. It was still a bit dull. And the challenge that you face, especially in a daytime show, is it's a high volume, highly repetitive. The game has to last for 40, 46 minutes. That's the length of a commercial hour. It has to sustain being on 5 times a week. And what your target is in the development stage of a quiz for daytime in the UK is you sort of think, well, we've got to be able to make 40 of these a year. So the format has to be interesting enough and has to have enough potential plot twists and turns built into it so that it can sustain interest and grow. So we sort of got stuck into the rigorous development of it, and then I introduced 2 elements which I'd say fundamentally changed the program. One is the chaser offers.
Right.
So now, and I'll tell you now the truth. I did that. The reason I did that was that I was very jealous of a guy who was playing the banker on Deal or No Deal, and who's subsequently become a friend of mine, Glenn Hugel. And Glenn had basically, as far as I was concerned, written himself a job for life as being the banker on Deal or No Deal. So I wanted to be the guy that was making up the offers on the chase. So I was creating a job for myself. So that's the real reason why we did the offers. And then the second thing we put in was we got rid of the first part of the format was people would work their way up the table and accumulate money and then decide at what point they wanted to turn and run. And it was like watching paint dry. So I said, let's get rid of that. Let's get money in the game really quickly. And let's put a cash builder in. And to get money in really quickly, if you watch the chase now quite sort of forensically, there is money in the game within 90 seconds. And it was the first quiz to really be that fast at doing it. And the reason that was, as I was trained on commercial TV that you have roughly 3 minutes whilst the viewer's hand is hovering over the remote control. And if you've got them there at the end of those 3 minutes, they're likely to stay to the first ad break. And then your next hurdle is to get them over the ad break. But that first 3 minutes is you've got to get their hand away from the remote control. So I said, we've got to get money in the game. So I introduced the cash builder, and then I introduced the chaser offers. The benefit of the chaser offers was that you were able to very clearly, as a viewer, make a judgment on the player. You could decide, does this person think they're good enough to beat a chaser? Is this person courageous? Are they greedy? Are they afraid? Should they have never been there in the first place? Do I want this person to win? Do I not care? All that is delivered by the chaser offer. And it's a psychological battle between the chaser and the player. And as soon as the player does not take the high offer, they've lost the psychological battle in that format.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things I always think about with the chase is that when you've got a brain that good who's answering questions, how do you cast to find people that are ever going to have a chance against that? And obviously what the offers does is it gives them a kind of way of, it gives them a route through it, doesn't it? Because otherwise you can just see a world in which no one ever could beat them.
Yeah, and that was one of the big sort of questions, that loomed ahead of us when we did the pilot series, the 10 episode series, which we launched with. Are we ever going to be able to get anybody who can beat the chasers? Well, the great thing is that they're not computers, so they do get things wrong. They are, and we've always referred to them this way, they are athletes, but of the brain. They are quiz athletes. They are the quiz equivalent of Usain Bolt. They are top of their game. They are the fastest. They are the smartest, and they are the most highly trained. But they have bad days, same way as footballers and runners and javelin throwers and skiers, if they're Scottish, have bad days. So from the very start, the casting was always, right, let's put together a team of people who, when combined, have the ability and the knowledge and the experience to beat a chaser. So that was always the casting policy from day one. And then it was a matter of how intact that team would be by the time they'd each face the chaser individually. So how many could make it back? It's very clear now, after all these years, most players come on the show, they know the format, and they know the goal is try and stay in the show. Try not to get caught in your head-to-head. The best chance of winning comes from when you've got a team of 3 or 4.
Right. And the other thing that's striking about that, I think, as well, is by putting money in that first 3 minutes, you immediately create stakes from the beginning, don't you? You create jeopardy, you create stakes, and you create a kind of narrative arc that you've got to see the end of. So it pushes through to that moment right from the moment that you start watching it.
Yeah, and look, there was a great team involved in this, and talked about the brains and development, but the other sort of very important member of the team who came to was my series producer and Krypton Factor was a woman called Sue Allison. She's still called Sue Allison, and she was a very experienced quiz producer, and I learned a lot from her working with the Krypton Factor. And there were various things that she knew were important and were vital for a quiz to have a chance of success. And one of the things she kept on talking about was you need to have moments of drama. You have to have moments of drama, and jeopardy and raising the stakes, all the things the words you're using, the terms you're using, they all deliver moments of drama. So as soon as money's in the game, after 1 minute of playing, if someone's got 2,000 or 10,000 or 12,000 pounds, then you have literally made the game real, and you've made the game real to them because literally 2 minutes ago they had nothing, and so you've introduced drama into the game straight away. Then our next moment of drama is a moment of theatre, which is bring on the chaser. We didn't have to have a chaser walk out every single time, but I said, well, come on, let's have a bit of theatre. Let's have them come walking out. We designed the whole set so that they would loom large, so they would look down. We lit the whole thing so they'd come out and they'd be backlit and silhouetted, so they'd look ominous. We're just using the tropes of theatre, and it all works. And especially our second chaser, Mark Levette, the Beast. When he walks out, he's 6'6" or whatever height he is. He's huge, and he was much wider than he is now. And he'd come out and he'd sit down, and the ground would literally shake. And so you've got drama within. So you've gone past your 3 minutes. The viewer's hand is away from the remote control, and now you've got a chaser in, and now the battle's on. So now you're in the pantomime. And it's all seamless, and it's happened so fast that the viewer, you have no choice. You have to watch. So Ali Sharman was the head of daytime at that point, and her commissioner was Diana Howie. And then it was Ali and Diana who had decided what we need to do is have a pilot season effectively. And so they announced that they would commission 2 formats and trial them out, 10 episodes each. So unheard of, a proper pilot season, as it were. And one of those 2 shows would possibly get commissioned, although obviously no guarantees. So the other show that was commissioned against us, and we really were in competition because we had to be better than them, was a show called The Fuse, which is a really good format. And then we were having a meeting with Ali and her commission editor, Diana, and we were then doing the thing which every television producer knows about, which is you talk about talent. And you have a list, and the names are on the list, and you've got to go through the list, and it depends what mood is in the room on the day and what time of the day it is and what month of the year it is and who's been in the newspapers for good or bad. And we went through the list, and everyone on the list was rejected. And I think there must have been almost 30 people. And a lot of them were very experienced, very recognized and popular quiz presenters.
Yeah.
Bradley had been in Coronation Street for 8 years, however long. And then Bradley had left Coronation Street and had sort of disappeared a little bit. And had spent a few years being, within the industry known as the Pilot King. He was the guy you'd ring when you needed a pilot done because he's such an experienced game show host from back in the day. And then he had more recently been presenting a daytime quiz on ITV that had been decommissioned. But his main gig at the time was drama. He was the lead in Law and Order UK. And I think they did 5 seasons of that. But he was very friendly with Ali Sharman. And on the day, purely by coincidence, on the day when we'd had our list of names torn up and literally thrown in the bin and sent off like school kids to do your homework again and try harder. Brad had been in the area, had phoned Ali and said, "Hey, can I pop in for a cuppa? How are you?" Had popped in, and he was hawking for work. That's what he was doing. So he said, "Have you got anything interesting?" She says, "Oh, we do have a quiz, actually." And she loves telling this tale, and Brad loves telling this tale, because what had happened was our pitch document, of which they had multiple copies, and you always religiously brought a printout to the meeting. They'd brought it back to the office, and they'd literally scrunched it up, thrown it in the bin. Not that no reflection on the show. It's just like, we don't need another copy. And Ali said to her commission editor, "Where's that treatment of the chase?" She reached into the bin, brought it out, flattened out the creases in it, and showed it to Bradley. And Bradley says, "Oh, that looks quite interesting." And 2 days later, I was in a room with him, doing a run through, and he still had the treatment, the creased treatment. That was all he had. And so that's, and we did a run through, and I don't think I hosted it. One of us hosted it while he watched, and he stopped us very, very quickly. He went, "I've got it now." And then he started to present it. And immediately the tone of the show changed. And that's when I started saying to him, like, you're going to be on the side of the contestants. I want you to be poking fun at the chasers. And here's the part in the show where you can play. Here's the part in the show where you have to do the housekeeping, do the business. And he loved it. And we did a run through, which lasted probably about 3 hours. But that was great. He loved it. He was on board. I really liked him. I thought we're going to be able to work together. A week later, I brought Ali in to see Brad, did some rehearsals. Brad worked very, very hard on it. Brought Ali and Diana in to see it, and they loved it, apart from the fact that it was very long again, because Brad has everybody's joke book in his head, and he was running every joke that he could into it, and all he had to do was calm down and relax. But we were there. We were there, absolutely there. And at that point, we still only had one chaser. We still had Sean.
So Ali's watched your run through with Brad.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves it. She says, "Michael, we're going to pilot this 10 episodes." Is that what happened next?
Well, first thing you got to remember, it's brilliant because it was her idea, because Bradley was her suggestion. So it's fantastic because she has saved the show. And that's the way things work in television. It was a genius idea. It was, a sliding doors moment, as it were. But, bringing Bradley to the show absolutely then made the show feel like a prime time treat. And he was so experienced in quiz. It was great. We were always, the path was always taking us towards this pilot run. We had parallel to us, literally in a room at the other corner of the building, the other quiz show was doing their run throughs. And we all knew what the TX dates were, what the transmission dates were. And so we were all on the same countdown clock. We were both racing to get the best presenter. We were both racing to get the best set designers. It really was proper competition. It was fab, because we won. And sorry,
in hindsight,
we were always going to win. We were just always going to win, because I did a few things which gave us an edge. We had similar budgets. The budgets were modest, but the brief was the show should have primetime values, but a daytime budget. So I went and got extra money. The other team didn't do that. They just stuck to their budget. They were good boys. But I went and got an extra, I can't remember, I think I got an extra £50,000 just to spend on the set and lighting, because I wanted ours to look amazing. Ours had to look like it could sit on Saturday night. And I'd made Saturday night shows, and I had fairly confident what that should look like. And the director and the lighting director we hired were all prime time experienced, big names. They weren't the kind of people you'd normally find doing a daytime show. So we set out to make a primetime show. We were always going to win, and we had Bradley Walsh.
Yeah, what's not to love? So you make it. Well, when you're making it, and you're in the gallery and you're watching it, and you're talking to Brad on the earpiece, and the format is playing out and it's coming together. Did you think at the time? You say you knew you were going to win. Did you think this is really good, this is going to be a hit? Or what was your sort of feelings about it when you were watching it for the first time this first few weeks?
It's funny you asked me that question, Ed, because you've made enough shows. You never sit there in the end and think this is definitely going to be a hit. You never do that. You think, I've done my job well. This is as good or maybe better than I could have dreamed.
But sometimes you think this,
but you never think this is going to be a hit.
But sometimes you think
I'm getting a BAFTA. You don't do that. Ed, you've never done that. Have you done that? You've sat there and gone, oh my God, I can feel really, really pleased with myself.
I definitely
I've done my job well, but you've never sat and gone, I've got a big
no, but I definitely think if I go, well, this is going to rate really well. This is definitely going to rate really well. Then I kind of manifest rate. It does rarely work, if I'm honest with you.
We had a definite sense that it was really good. And there were a lot of very experienced people working in the crew. In fact, actually, probably the least experienced quiz person on the entire operation was probably me. But in the floor managers, the camera crew, the sound crew, the lighting crew, the heads of departments, the director, all the gallery crew had done loads of quiz and game shows. And every single one of them said, oh my God, this is really, really special. And Bradley, who had for over a decade in the 90s presented more quiz and game shows than he cared to admit to, was saying again, he said, I think this is the best thing I've ever done. Now, but you're in a bubble and you don't know. And outside of that bubble, we should remember the context at the time. Context at the time was that daytime television was dominated by Channel 4. Channel 4 were the kings of daytime. They had Come Dine With Me, going into Deal or No Deal, and you could not touch those. And the only show that came close was BBC's Weakest Link. But nobody could get a sniff of anything at daytime. And those shows dominated the ratings, and they were getting 15% share, and maybe 1.5 million viewers on average. And that was huge for daytime. And we knew when we were launching in June, which is a slightly softer time of the year to launch. But our problem then was that our first week was going to be up against Wimbledon on BBC 1 and 2. And Wimbledon is fine as long as there isn't a really strong British representation in Wimbledon. And that year we had Andy Murray, who went to the quarterfinals. So no one was watching anything other than Wimbledon on the days where Andy Murray was playing tennis. So even though we weren't aware of all of that when we were filming sort of 2 months before, I knew we were stepping into a really competitive part of the schedule where a win would be difficult. But we were all confident that we were putting our best foot forward. And that sounds unusually timid for me, but it was the best we could hope for at the time. But I knew that we couldn't have done any more than we did. And all the work we'd done with Bradley, all the work we'd done with the chasers. And at that point, we had 2 chasers with the pilot run. The casting team had done an amazing job, got really, really good contestants. Plus, also, the chaser offers, which had started off being a nice, simple idea, became a huge, huge issue because we had to have insurance underwriters because the network were worried that I was just going to let millions of pounds walk out the door. And someone had to regulate that. So I had to design a whole process. I don't know if you remember this. I had to design flowcharts for the offers and they had to be signed off. I had to explain this to an insurance underwriter. Try explaining a quiz show that has never existed and how you're going to make offers of money that you don't have to people that you've never met and guarantee that you're going to stay on budget. Well, I did that. So when we're recording the shows, I was actually at the back of the gallery with an insurance underwriter beside me and a lawyer beside him and with my flowcharts. And every time a contestant did their cash builder and got some money, I'd then have to explain to them why I was going to make the offer that I was going to make. And while I did that, the entire production had to stop and wait. So we had to do that for 4 times per show for 10 shows. And on that first series, I brought the prize budget in within £100.
Wow.
So the flowcharts worked.
They worked. But I seem to remember that once it was up and running and you brought Martin Scott in to oversee it and so forth, there were times when you go down to the studio and just make offers out of the blue, which would just kind of blow everybody away and stir things up a bit.
Yes.
Which I get to keep the format fresh and to keep it going on and so forth. But
because you need the drama. Yeah. You need the moments of drama.
Yeah.
By the time I think we got to series 4, I wasn't doing the offers all the time because we had too many other shows running. And we had a fantastic series producer, David Hall, at that point, and Martin Scott, who was execing. And Martin, who's more experienced than all of us put together, was more than able to do the offers at that point. But he would do the offers in quite a sort of perfunctory, functional kind of way. They would do the job. There's nothing wrong at all. They would support the format and they would stay on budget. But every now and again, you just need to shake things up. And the running joke in the crew was they could tell when Kelpie was in the building.
Yeah, quite.
Because I'd put in a number that would just make the contestant gasp. And that's what it's supposed to do. The whole purpose of the offer was to make the contestant question themselves and question the strategy that they come to the show with. You know, the strategy that they've been talking with amongst themselves for the 2 or 3 hours when they were in the dressing rooms beforehand. They're going, well, I'm definitely, if I get 5, I'm not going high. There's no way I'm going high because 5,000 is plenty and that's all I need for my kitchen. You know, all those conversations. And then they get 5 and I go, right, well, hey, do you want 50? And they go, whoa. They were only expecting 25. They go, 50,000. It's only one more question. And you see it all play out on the face, and that's the moment of drama. When when the show started to give us the spin-offs, we were doing celebrity stunt shows. The numbers that I would throw out on that, Brad would literally, you could see he was nervous. And there were times when he'd ask me to come down the floor and have a chat with him and explain what the hell was going on because he thought I was losing my marbles. He was worried that I was going to get the show cancelled because we were going to lose too much money.
And Brad does worry about those kind of things.
He absolutely
really does.
Yeah. He absolutely does because, I don't know, he's probably been in that situation before where it's happened. But he thinks like a producer. And there has been many, many times when I've had to go down to him beforehand and say, just get ready for something. And he go, are you sure? I go, yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. And it'll be okay, and we have some fun.
So 2009, June, Wimbledon's on. Andy Murray is getting through to the quarterfinals.
Really well.
He's doing really well. It's on BBC One. Channel 4 have got daytime completely sewn up, and your pilot run's about to go out.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel? What was it like?
I thought it'd be okay. You know, I thought I was praying for rain for Wimbledon. I was actually hoping that Andy Murray wouldn't do well. You know, it's nothing personal, Andy. I wasn't really worried about Come Down With Me and Deal. I didn't really see them as being the targets for a pilot run. The way that I'd positioned with the team and in all my conversations with the network, I tried to manage the expectations. And I said, what we need to do here is we need people to view this pilot run as having been a success. We can't realistically expect to land a hit within 10 shows, 2 weeks on air. But if we all look back at this and we get some research afterwards, and if the press reviews are positive, then I think we can look at this has been successful. And if it has been successful, we should seriously consider, and this is me talking to the channel, to the network, we should seriously consider this coming back as a series of 30 episodes. So rude. But, you know, and that's where we positioned it. But secretly, you know, I thought Weakest Link was looking tired. And I also knew that Bradley was a great piece of talent and a great draw because he's an honorary Northerner because of his years in Coronation Street. And it's one of the elements that he has, which makes him hugely popular on television, but especially on ITV. He feels like a Northerner. But he's okay for the Southerners to watch as well because he's a Watford boy. Now he lives in Essex. But also, and he had that twinkle in his eye, which, you know this, I've said it for years. It's one of the things I keep on banging on about. You look at who the most successful entertainment presenters are on television, and they're the ones that look like they're capable of mischief, especially on ITV. Bradley's naughty, and that's what people love. So I felt quite confident going into it. And then we kicked off and Wimbledon was going well. Wimbledon was in its second week and Andy Murray was doing well and the sun was shining, so there was nothing we could do. So the first week we trundled along quite well. We did okay. And then the second week, BBC hit us with Weakest Link. And by Wednesday, we were beating Weakest Link. And that was it. Wednesday night, we got the figures on Thursday morning. We'd beaten Weakest Link. Weakest Link hadn't been beaten ever, I don't think. So I'm immediately phoning the Crusader going, have you seen the numbers? Have you seen the numbers? And they were saying, let's just see what happens tomorrow. Thursday, we beat them by a bit more margin. Friday, we beat them again. So we finished on a high. So as we left that and went to the weekend, I was fairly confident we were coming back.
Yeah, I seem to remember that. I don't think I was at ITV at the time, but I do remember that first week. It was good, but it wasn't stellar or anything. It was just performing well. But then suddenly there was this just switch on moment, wasn't it? And there was another moment like that, I reckon 3 or 4 years later, when it went from being a kind of it was up like in the 4 millions, wasn't it? Do you remember that when it there was a period of a couple of years where it just kind of went to another level again?
There are two key points that I think were important steps on the ladder for us. One was when we extended the brand and did the celebrity shows and put the celebrity shows into primetime.
And that wasn't that long after the
Series 4.
Series 4, yeah.
So it's
a couple of years after the show.
Yeah, by that stage, yeah. So I'd gone out to MIPCOM to try and help sell the show. I had spoken to loads of international broadcasters, and they'd all said, it's a great show. We can see it's a great show. We've looked at the tape, but we don't commission in daytime. We don't spend money in daytime. As soon as you get to prime time, let us know. So I came back to ITV, went and spoke to the head of schedules, very, very clever, nice man called David Berg. And I said, I need to put the chase in prime time. And he said, well, how would we do that? And I says, I'll do a celebrity version. I says, but it has to be listed as the chase, ... celebrity edition. I says, it can't be called the celebrity chase. He says, why is that? I says, so that when the Americans see it on the overnight listings, they see the chase in prime time. So that when the Australians see it, when the Norwegians see it, they see the chase. So he said, okay, give me a list of celebrities. I walked back downstairs to my office, sat with the team and went, let's come up with a list of 10 teams that could do the show. Went back upstairs and said, here you go. He says, can you get them? I went, of course I can get them. And that was it. So he said, okay, we'll take a run of those. And so that was the first key thing. The second thing was there was a viral moment, which has since become very, very famous, where the question writers had done a fantastic job. We started to write questions because we realized we could make Bradley laugh. And making Bradley laugh is one of the most joyous things on the planet. So we tasked ourselves with trying to get him to corpse. So the question writer started writing funny questions, but the funniest question was Fanny Chmelar. There was a German downhill skier by the name, perfectly innocent in German, name of Fanny Chmelar. And there's no other way of pronouncing it. We didn't make it up. We didn't change it. We didn't try to comedy it up. The woman's name is Fanny Chmelar. And so we put the question, in. And Brad would only proofread the quick fire questions, right? So when Brad says, I haven't seen the questions, I don't know what the computer's going to throw out, it's genuine. He doesn't know what the multiple choice questions are. He never knows what they are. So that's where we would write the questions to try and catch him out. And this was one of the head-to-head questions. And he had no idea what was coming. And he read it. And quite often he'll read it. And he doesn't really know what he's reading. He's in autopilot mode. He reads it. And it wasn't until it come out. And then he registers what he's just said. Then he goes back and he looks at it again. And he goes, did I really say that? But at which stage he's then just laughing. And he realizes what he said. And then he looks up at Anne, and she's sitting there, the governess, and she's laughing because she's realized what he said. The contestant's gone. He turns to the rest of the contestants. They just can't believe that Bradley Walsh has said Fanny Chmelar. And so that was it. And then literally they genuinely corpsed for nearly 5 minutes on the show.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's such a great, it's so funny.
We cut that. We put that up on YouTube. That went, and everybody picked up on it. And that was a real thing where everybody sat up and went, what is this thing that's happening in daytime? Then when we ran, so those two things sort of happened around about the same time. The celebrity show on Saturday nights in the autumn, or Sunday nights, I can't remember whether it was, but it was definitely prime time of the weekend. That drove more viewers into the daytime shows during the week. Immediately. I mean, immediately we went from 2 million something to 3 point something million immediately. And by the time we got to the end of that autumn run, so those 8 or 10 weeks with the celebrity shows on Saturday nights, we were the kings of daytime. That was it. No one could touch us. And it didn't look like we were going to go back from that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I remember being there at that point, and I don't think anything had rated at that kind of level in daytime, or has done since, really. I can't think of anything.
No, there's nothing. Even with everything that's gone since. I mean, in all the years we've been doing it, and you know, so it's how many years now? 17 years since the 17th year. 2,500 shows,
wow.
Probably. Originals. There's lots of repeats now, but 2,500 brand new episodes in that time. The only show that has ever come close is Pointless on BBC. And so we had a battle for a few years, head to head, which is just fun because none of it matters. It's just telly. And neither broadcaster took it terribly seriously, because ITV were very happy because of the volume that we were getting with the chase anyway. And BBC were very happy that they had a show was successful, but they're not really interested in ratings battles. They just want a show which serves the needs of the license payers. And they were both very, very different shows. And Bradley might have been quite vocal in his feelings about the show. And we may have stormed their set a few times because they were filming in the studio.
You stormed their set. Oh, right.
They used to film in the studio right next to us in Elstree. So we used to storm their set. Brad would go in and hide in the audience. He would hide himself in the audience while they were filming, and in the middle of their show start disrupting them.
While Alexander Armstrong
was
doing his thing.
He'd just start shouting abuse at Xander. That was so funny. So funny. And all our friends were producing it. So like we all knew each other. It was like, there was no animosity. Like it wasn't like Man United, Man City. It wasn't that at all. It was like proper, like, okay, right. So your show's doing quite well, but it's dull. Our show's really exciting. But well done with your dull show. Our show is really exciting.
Yeah. Well, that's Bradley's gleam in his eye, isn't it? He's always up causing
proper
trouble.
mischief.
So one of the things that's come up a lot in talking to people about these kind of these big shows, which has dominated British culture, is often in them there are moments or a moment or a situation where it looks like they're not going to happen, or there's a problem, or it's going to go sideways, or it's not as good as you thought it was going to be, or it's not. Did you have any of those with the chase at all?
Well, there was one moment before we shot the pilot series when the commissioner and the controller of daytime came to see it and said something quite disparaging about what she thought about the format, and then we had to go reformat it. At that point, and by the way, we were less than a month away from filming, and she was prepared to pull the plug unless I fixed it, and so I fixed it within 2 days. And went back and spoke to her myself and said, this is how we're going to fix this. And she said, great, go ahead then. And so that was the first, that one, that was real. She would have pulled the plug. And the second time was after the series had aired, after both the pilot series had aired, the network commissioned an independent research company to do some audience research. We weren't allowed to be involved in it. We weren't allowed to have any input. And then when we received the audience research report, which I still have the copy of, it literally slated the show.
Really?
It told us all the things that were wrong about it, all the things that people didn't like about it. And we were then brought in and we were given a good old telling off by the network and said, well, look, the audience research says this is all wrong.
This is after it had gone out that pilot run and it had been a success and got...
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And so the audience research report, it seemed to me that the audience research company wanted to try and prove their credentials by being super thorough and supposedly sort of, putting forward an argument that no one was expecting. And so I just sat there and I went, it's probably a little bit like a scene from Mad Men. I was going to let you know, this is rubbish research. No one likes this. I don't agree with it. And neither do the viewers, because this is the show that beat The Weakest Link. Oh, and then by the way, the week after you put on your other pilot and The Weakest Link won the slot again. So you must be insane if you think that this is true. So, and that was a really sticky moment, because they paid a lot of money for the research, and all they had was me sitting in front of them saying, but the evidence is we won the slot. The evidence is that all the press is so positive. No one slagged off. I mean, there were a few people who sort of going, oh, the chasers must know the answers and all this sort of nonsense. But by and large, everybody liked it. And the public reaction was really strong. We used to have the duty log at that time. Do you remember when people used to phone in or write into the broadcaster and tell them what they thought? And I remember getting the duty log notes each morning. We used to get them emailed, and people just saying how much they loved Bradley. It was great to see him on television again, and this fabulous quiz, and it should be on Saturday night, and all those sort of things. So I just couldn't believe the audience research report that we were presented with. So those 2 moments were the sticky ones.
So those moments as a TV producer, they're always hard to get through because you've put so much into this project, and potentially what it can do for your career or it can do for your production company is just enormous. And in a very short period of time, you go from feeling like this is going great to being, oh my God, this is potentially a disaster.
Yes.
Now, you are one of the most resilient, tenacious, persistent people I think I've ever met.
You need to get out more.
No, that's not true. That is not true. You absolutely are. How do you personally manage those moments? How do you actually get through them? Because they're not easy.
I think there's part of me that operates in a beautiful, shallow surface world where, very simply, I believe in the idea so much that I won't stop talking until someone agrees with me. And with this show, I absolutely believed that I didn't believe it was going to be on air in 17 years. I didn't believe it was going to be in multiple territories around the world. I just believed that it was probably the best quiz that could be on television at that time. And it was definitely the best thing on ITV. It was definitely the best offering from ITV. So I wasn't going to stop. Behind that, behind the creative, behind the passionate person who's, sort of involved in things that I want to watch myself and want other people to watch, there's a bit where I'm looking after people's jobs. And the thing that's always been most important to me is to surround myself with brilliant people. It's always been my mantra. Surround myself with people who are smarter and better than me, because they will make me look good, and that has worked. But in doing that, I sort of make those people promises. I promise that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you've got a job, and to make sure that you're able to do the job to the best of your ability, and that you get recognized for the hard work and the skill that you put into it. And when someone says, "Oh, Lass, we don't agree with you," then I'm not just fighting for me. I'm fighting for all the people I've promised to give them jobs to. So I had a whole squad of people who believed that, oh my God, we got something really special here. And they deserved to know that they were going to have a job. And so there was no way I was going to leave the room until they said, all right, then we'll take 30 episodes. And I'm like that on every project that I really believe in. If I don't believe in it, then honestly, it can die in front of me.
And I have seen that in action. But the other thing I would say that I think works well as well is that if on the odd occasion that they have just said, no, Michael, we're actually not going to do it, you always, and I'm saying this as a way that one deals with life, you always see it as their loss, not your loss.
Absolutely.
You always look at it and go, they've missed out. Not that you've missed out or we've missed out. Whatever. It's always they've missed out and it's their loss. And that's important as well, because that's about, again, it's about how much you believe in the project, how good you think the project is, and then sticking to that. And just because someone else says to you, I don't want this, doesn't mean it's not a good project, doesn't mean it's not worth anything. It just means that they have a difference of opinion and they've lost.
Yeah, and there's a couple of points that come out of that. The first thing is that, that comes dangerously close to being seen as being arrogant. And I've lived my entire professional career with people thinking that I'm arrogant. And I don't think I am arrogant. I genuinely don't think I'm an arrogant person, but I do sometimes present as an arrogant bastard. But I have self-belief and passion, and that's what I use to make decisions. I'll make a decision, I'll live by the decision. If it's the right decision, great. If it's the wrong decision, it was my decision, but I was there to do it. But so that's fundamentally important. But the other thing is, and there have been times when people have just said no, and then what you got to do is you got to leave the room with grace. And when people realize that you will accept a no, they're more likely to open the door the next time and let you back and have a conversation. It's when you can't be talked down or talked back that someone that you want to do business with will sometimes say, you're just a pain in the ass, go away. And then the final point that I think comes out of that is that the history of television, especially formats and ideas, is littered with tales of shows that did not get commissioned straight away, of ideas that were knocked back time and time and time again. So Beat the Chasers, just in this context, took over 2 years in development. And you thought, it must be easy. Walk in the door. We've got another version of The Chase, but it's better. Do you want it? Took 2 years.
I remember, yeah.
2 years, and 2 years with some very, very heated discussions between me and the controller of ITV, because I was absolutely convinced that I was right, and he was absolutely convinced that he was right. And in the end up, I said, well, you're not getting the show then. And it took a new commission editor to come in later and say, can we try again, Michael? and then for us to become friends again. Deal or No Deal was going around doing the rounds for nearly 4 years, I think.
5 years.
Traders forever has been going around. Great British Bake Off.
Yeah.
Is a classic that everybody in the industry knows about. It was passed over by everybody. So again, if you're developing ideas and if you're a producer of ideas and they're your little babies and you care about them so much and you put so much time, effort, and quite often money and blood, sweat and tears into, just because the answer is a no now doesn't mean it's a no forever. Once we started, we went from series 1, which was the pilot run of 10. So we got through that, got it recommissioned for a run of 30. And the run of 30 worked. And at that point, that's when I thought we might still be making this in 5 years' time. I mean, literally, and again, you know me, so you know that my head immediately goes, how many more can I get them to commission? Not, can I do another 30? Can I increase it to 40? Can I do 60? Could I get this to 80? Even at that point, I don't think I would have dared to dream that we would have got to the 210 a year that we were making. But as soon as we did the 30 and that was a hit, I went back and I said, we've got to do more. So we did 40. And then as soon as we got the 40 and the 40 worked, I said, we've got to do more. And we did 60. And then it was after that, why don't you just commission 2 series now? And then we get 2 series of 60 or 2 series of 80. I can't remember exactly the numbers. And very quickly I got to the point where, right, like, what we've got to do here is we've got to keep as many new shows as you can afford to put on. So we grew every single year.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, having worked and known you for a long time, that is one of your greatest sort of talents, really, is the ability, once something has a sort of some form of track record of success, the door is open a little bit.
Yeah, my foot's in the door.
The door is pushed wide open,
Yeah.
and you absolutely maximise that success. I mean, even today, Chase Around the World, which is the latest one. I mean, it's 17 years down the line. I mean, I can't think of many shows that create spin-offs 17 years down the line, or 10 years down the line even. It is quite extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been very, very fortunate in my career to be part of the Chase. And it helped me build the production company, Potato, which is part of ITV Studios. It helped a lot of us have jobs and careers. And the viewers have loved it. And that's allowed us to be creative and find ways to extend the brand at a time when there's been a genuine appetite by broadcasters and producers and everyone else to extend brands. So being able to extend it into prime time, do the celebrity version, be able to develop one of the first paid for quiz apps in the UK was a success, hugely successful. A board game, which is still hugely successful. But in doing all of these, there were lots of things that, as the brand guardian, which was my role, I'd say no to. Or I'd say not now, not yet. Let's concentrate on this one iteration or this new iteration. Let's get that right. Let's make sure the quality is maintained. Let's make sure it's true to the brand. Let's make sure it's successful, because as soon as we do something that's not successful, that's when you tarnish the brand. And at all times, I was trying to protect what I lovingly refer to as the mothership, which is the daytime show. Quite often, we've seen on other quizzes and other shows that the daytime show quite often gets forgotten when the big shiny jewel of prime time comes along. But actually, without the daytime show, Celebrity Chase beat the Chasers, and my last gift to ITV4 left, which was Chase Around the World, those would not exist. In addition to the app and the board game, we've been developing, and I assume that's coming to fruition soon, a live experience. So it's a food and beverage driven one, like the pot shacks and stuff like that. And we've spent 3 years in development of that, making sure that it was right. And at all times, everything comes back to the core team. The questions are always written by us. They're always signed off by us. We make sure that the values of the Chase are still clear and true in whatever the new iteration is. And if we think that the viewers don't want it, then my role was always to say, well, let's not do that. And I think, well, the evidence is the daytime show is still going strong. Beat the Chasers is still one of the best primetime big scale event gives, and that's a whole new format that we span out of the show. The Celebrity Chase is still a treat, and one of the things we did is we reduced the number of those, so they felt special. Beat the Chasers feels special. It was originally designed as a stunt show that would be stripped across a week. It would happen once a year, maybe twice a year. but it was different enough. But it was more of Bradley, and what we discovered, the real money is the chasers. The chasers are the real stars of the show. Everybody loves Bradley, but they adore the chasers. And everything we've done since has just been protect the brand, maintain the mothership, and never lose sight of what the viewers love.
So what's so very interesting about what you've just said is the way that you've described it as a brand.
Yeah.
And brand values and the mothership and all that kind of stuff. And you've described the way that you've grown the Chase and how you've protected it in the same way that someone might a car brand or a product, basically. Yeah. And I think what a lot of things I've been talking about recently on things like LinkedIn and so forth is the need to see television programs as products rather than as just kind of one-off things that go out there. Like you have to, the holy grail is to find a brand that you can then monetize in many different ways, as you've done with the Chase.
Yeah.
How is it that you saw it in that very commercial way from a very early point onwards, rather than just as, because the people doing Pointless or Countdown or any of these things, and Countdown's been on TV for what, 40, 50 years, whatever it might be, but it's not a brand. No one's ever got hold of that and turned it into a brand in the same way. But what you did with it is you treated it like a business, treated it like a product, and you then did what all entrepreneurs aspire to do, which is create a universe of different elements to that and monetize all of them successfully.
It was never the intention to create a brand or to regard it as a brand or a product, but I was sort of trained that way. I'd worked at indie producers before where the commercial possibilities was really what kept the companies going. So I was trained to think, as we did in the olden days, we used to talk about 360 exploitation, taking your show and what can you do with your title in as many different directions as possible, all for the commercialization of it and making more money for the company. So I came from that environment. I think we definitely have to regard formats and programs for what they are. They are IP. IP is product. We have to do that. But the thing that I've always thought was the most important, fundamentally at the heart of what we were doing at Potato and what we're doing with all our shows, was that first and foremost, they were a TV show that we cherished. We made it because we loved it, and we loved it because we made it. We made it because we wanted to watch it ourselves, and we hoped that other people would want to watch it. So first and foremost, before it even starts to become a brand or be regarded as a product, it's something that we cherish dearly. And it's made with love and attention to detail and care and expertise and in pursuit of excellence. You have to maintain that as your starting point, and you have to hold that preciously throughout. The danger is when the accountant's voices become too loud, and when you start to regard product as programs as inventory, then actually you lose the heart and soul of what it is. And viewers are not fooled. If viewers think for 1 second that you're taking them for a ride and you're exploiting them and you're trying to get money out of them, they'll let you go, no, you're not doing that. They'll treat it the same way as a scam call. So, but if they think, well, you're doing this because you love it, and what you got is a really good idea. So I said, the idea of moving into prime time and putting celebrities on it, that's a really good idea. For all the people who loved it in daytime, they go, well, that's great. Let's see what Barry from EastEnders is like when he goes on it. Let's see what Joe Pasquale's like. Let's see Stacey Solomon, who was like one of the biggest surprises we've ever had on the show as a celebrity. But God, she's smart. So when they see that you're doing it because you love the show, and they go, well, we love the show too, then they'll stay with you. So, but it is a brand, it is a product, because all television shows are products. We are manufacturers. We are producers, for God's sake. We produce products. So anybody who tries to say that it's not, well, then good luck to you, because I don't know how you survive in this industry.
Especially today.
Because I think what I've proved and what many other producers have proved, you included, is that you can create great product and you can commercialize it and still be true to the product and still regard this as an art, as a craft, but be hugely successful in doing it.
I couldn't agree with you more. And finally, the Chase now 17 years old. Bradley is still presenting it, even after all this time.
I know. I know.
Surely he's got to have enough. Surely, I mean, I can't see there being a world in which the chase goes anywhere soon, because it's still doing the numbers. It's still one of the most successful shows on ITV. Is he going to stay for a long time? And you speak to him, you know him. What do you think the future is for the chase?
Brad and I, from the very start of this, Brad and I always had a deal that if he wanted to stop making it, I would stop making it. And the only thing that's slightly disrupted that is that I've left now, so they're continuing on with the shows that I had commissioned before I left, and they're making those. And I don't see them stopping it anytime soon. It is Bradley's favorite job. And it's not like a job to him. I mean, he walks in, stands on the floor, 2 hours at a time for each recording, does 3 in a day, does 4 days a week, and he absolutely loves it. He's knackered. He's getting on a bit. He's nowhere near finished yet, but he's getting on a bit. But he loves it so much. And it's half an hour from his house, so he can go home, get his dinner. But we always had a deal. And while I was responsible for it, I always thought, I don't want to be tasked with trying to find a replacement. I don't want to. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't be possible to do that, but I personally wouldn't want to. And that's why we had the agreement. So if Brad had said to me at any point in the last 17 years, I've had enough, Michael, I'm going to go and play golf. Thanks very much. It's been joyful. And by the way, here's a really nice, expensive gift, which, by the way, still hasn't happened. Send him a clip of this. But if he'd said that, I would have stayed true to my word. I went, okay, well, we'll stop making it now. Or I'll stop making it. And if someone else wants to decide they want to continue making it, and they want to find someone else to do it, then I wish them the best of luck. The businessman in me says you keep on going, because, it is one of the most important formats that ITV Studios has. It is probably the most successful quiz in the UK at the moment. It is one of the most successful quizzes in the world. I think it's in 21 territories at the moment. It has been in 24. And it's still growing. Beat the Chasers is growing. But the artist in me, how dare I refer to myself as an artist, but the non-business mind of me says, get out at the top. Do the Monty Python. Leave them wanting more. And I think that's a classy thing to do. And that would be my choice, but the choice is no longer mine. And I don't know how much longer Bradley's going to continue to do it. I haven't spoken to him in 2026 yet. We will be speaking soon, and there will be alcohol involved. And I'll be very interested to hear what he has to say. But he loves the show. Mm. And the viewers love him, and he's a performer, and he loves to be loved.
Quite terrific. But thank you, Michael. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks very much.
It's funny, I was never a producer on The Chase, but it was a big part of my life for a very long time, because I was the creative director of a production company that made the series, and I was always hearing about what they were filming and about what we could possibly do to spin off IP from it and create new series. And I was always aware when there was a new chaser coming, and everybody get really excited about this new kind of element that was joining the show. I think what I hadn't twigged, though, was this very simple thing that Michael pointed out, which was that in the very first few minutes of the game, money appears in the game. And of course, what that does is it immediately puts in drama and jeopardy. There's something to lose right from the start of when the episode begins. And I think that is a really kind of key, smart thing that works very, very well for the show. The other thing is that, of course, The Chase it's a pantomime. The villain is the quizzer, whether it be the Beast or the Governess, and you as the participator, a member of the public, are up against this pantomime villain trying to beat them at their own game. And that's something we can all relate to, because essentially it's the story of the underdog. But I think what Michael has done so successfully, and the other producers on it, is they've been able to structure that that game for that underdog in a way which is just compelling and really kind of draws you through. The last element, of course, which we talked about extensively, but can't be overlooked, is just how brilliant Bradley is as a host. He's funny, he's warm, he's on the side of the contestant. He feels like he could be a contestant on it. He doesn't feel like a villain on it. And actually, they are, as Michael says, they're kind of two peas in a pod. Is there a chase without Brad? I don't know. But certainly, it's a series that's going to go on for a long time.